Every single year, we see this incredible modern migration happening. We're talking millions of Indian professionals, entire families, moving not just across continents, but even across states within India itself.
It's a massive shift.
A huge shift. And they pack up their careers, their homes, but the one thing that's really, really hard to pack is a child's education. So they land somewhere new, say London or Dubai, or even just moving from one Indian metro to another.
And right away, they're hit with this impossible question.
Exactly. This incredibly high-stakes question. Which system is the right one? Is it the national standard, CBSE? Is it the global gold standard of IB, or maybe a local state board or some other foreign curriculum? How do you even begin to decide what's best for your child's future?
You can't. Not without a framework.
Okay, so let's unpack that, because the weight of that decision is just immense. And for these parents, the global education map is, and I'm quoting the source material here, more confusing than ever.
Oh, absolutely. You've got curricula basically at war with each other.
Yeah, schools are advertising like crazy, and then on top of all that, countries can just change their immigration rules or university entry requirements overnight.
Right. And that creates this complete paralysis for parents who just want a clear, factual roadmap. They just want to know what to do.
So that's what we're looking at today. We've got our hands on the strategic blueprint for a really ambitious new resource. It's a promised 100-episode series designed specifically to bring some clarity to this whole mess.
100 episodes. That's a serious commitment.
It is. So our mission for this deep dive is to analyze that blueprint. What's the core approach here? What makes it different? And maybe the biggest question, why does this problem need 100 hours of analysis right now?
You know, if we zoom out and connect this to the bigger picture, the goal of a roadmap this huge isn't just to help a parent pick a school.
It's bigger than that.
Much bigger. It's about giving them what the source calls a strategic compass. When you're drowning in information and parental anxiety is, through the roof, just giving them more data doesn't help.
No, it makes it worse.
It makes it worse.
Yeah.
You need a logical, proven structure. And this roadmap seems designed to just cut through all the marketing noise, all the information overload. It's trying to reframe the choice, not as an emotional panic, but as a calculated long-term strategic decision.
That shift from emotional reaction to strategic calculation, that feels like the whole game right there. Let's dive into section 1, because the source material gets very specific about the dilemmas that are fueling this whole thing. And the source is, like you said, just brutally precise about the anxieties it's trying to solve. These aren't just, general academic questions.
Oh, these are the 3 a.m. questions, the ones that genuinely keep parents awake.
Exactly. The first set is all about just the viability of the system itself when you're on the move. They're asking which board actually gives you the most fluid global mobility, not just what schools claim, but what actually works.
And the money question, the big one. Is the cost of IB, which is enormous, is it actually justified by the results you'll get for your kid in your specific situation?
Yes, because that's not a one-size-fits-all answer. And then for so many parents, the question is even more fundamental. It's about CBSE. Will the national backbone, the system most of them grew up with, will it still hold its value when they move abroad?
Right. Will it actually open doors at those top-tier international universities? Or will it be seen as, second best?
And that's just the international side. The blueprint also highlights this huge domestic challenge, navigating India's, 30-plus state boards?
It's a labyrinth. For parents moving internally, say from Mumbai to Chennai, that curriculum switch can be just as jarring as moving to another country.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The syllabus, the language of instruction, the way colleges in that state view the local board, it all changes. But the roadmap insists on something else, something that's often just ignored.
The emotional side.
The emotional and psychological adaptation for the kids. A successful move isn't just about getting your grades converted. It's about whether your child remains stable and well through the whole process. That's the real measure of success.
And this roadmap, it promises a tone that's a complete departure from what you usually see in the education market. It's not the feel-good motivational stuff.
Or the fear-mongering, if you don't choose this school, your child will fail. That kind of thing.
Exactly. The designers are explicit. These questions have to be answered, and I'm quoting again, not emotionally, but factually, logically, and globally.
And that objectivity is just. It's non-negotiable. The
Yeah.
stakes are generational. You're uprooting your family. You're making a massive financial and emotional bet.
And the old resources just don't cut it anymore.
They don't. The blueprint points out that those simple CBSE versus IB YouTube videos, they all make the same mistake. They just compare syllabuses.
As a piece of paper.
Exactly. A curriculum is static. A child's life, especially a globally mobile one, is anything but.
Which brings us to what I think is the most interesting idea here. The unique conceptual shift they're promising. They're not comparing syllabuses, they're comparing lives.
That's the whole thing. It's about transitions. The focus is on real-world movement and the friction that movement creates. Because if a child isn't resilient enough to handle the move, the curriculum itself becomes totally irrelevant.
So how do they use the examples in the source to really hammer that home?
Well, the examples are very deliberately chosen. They represent these common migratory paths. Take the first one, a family moving from a tech hub like Bengaluru to, say, Budapest in Europe.
Okay.
The challenge there isn't just, will the Hungarian school recognize the CBSE transcript? It's so much deeper. The kid is dealing with a new language, a new culture, maybe even a non-English classroom for some subjects. How do you keep up in math when all the terminology just changed overnight?
And then they look at the reverse journey, which is just as important, the move back. From a big expat hub like Dubai, where kids are in these top-tier IB or IGCSE schools, back to a city like Delhi.
And this is a shock to the system that so many people underestimate. The global kid, who is great at inquiry-based learning and writing long essays, suddenly has to reintegrate into the Indian national system, which is all about high-stakes competitive entrance exams. The entire philosophy of learning is different.
So they're culturally adapted to a Western style, but now they have to pivot to this rigid, content-heavy testing culture.
Exactly. And that can cause huge psychological and academic whiplash if it's not managed properly.
And that third example they give, it really ties it all together, moving from a local state board, then to CBSE, and then finally to IB for the last few years of high school.
That one journey contains 3 completely different academic cultures. And the roadmap promises to analyze the friction at each one of those switches. So the focus is on transition, identity, mental health, mobility, affordability.
Yeah.
All of that comes before you even start talking about academic content.
So why now? Why are these factors, the social, the emotional, the financial, suddenly more important than just matching up textbooks?
Because for this demographic, for professional families who might have to move every 3 to 5 years, the curriculum becomes secondary. The child's resilience and the system's portability are what matter. I mean, think about it. If the child has an identity crisis or an emotional breakdown because of the move, who cares how good the textbook is?
The content becomes moot.
Completely. The goal of this strategy is to build a portable, adaptable human being, not just a portable transcript.
And that rigor leads directly to what the source calls the Palki-style questions. This defines the whole analytical tone. For our listeners who might not get the reference, this is about a very specific, critical, logical style of inquiry.
Absolutely. It's the methodology they use to strip out the bias. It's like a cross-examination, unsparing, focused only on evidence. They promise to ask relentlessly, what are the verifiable facts?
So no marketing claims, no rumors?
None. Then they ask who benefits, which is crucial. It exposes the commercial interest. Is a school pushing IB because it's best for your child or because it allows them to charge higher fees?
A question very few people ask.
And then, what is the global trend, which is about future-proofing the decision? Where is the world of education going? Not where was it 10 years ago? And finally, where is the gap?
Identifying weaknesses.
Weaknesses in the system, sure, but more importantly, identifying the blind spots in a parent's own planning.
And all of that analysis has to lead to the one question parents actually care about. So what should I really do?
That's the promise. It's not just theory. It's a commitment to delivering concrete, actionable advice based on all that deep, objective analysis. This tone is the foundation of the whole thing.
Okay, so let's move into the framework itself. If you're going to tackle something this massive, you need a clear, consistent structure. And the blueprint proposes this 3-system analysis in every single deep dive.
And that tripartite structure is, I think, brilliant. It's brilliant because it mirrors how a parent actually thinks. They're always weighing their choice against the main national standard, which is CBSE, and the main international one, IB.
So it's a constant comparison.
A constant parallel comparison. The strategy dedicates a lot of time to those two because that's where the most complexity lies.
Okay, let's start with System 1, which they call CBSE, the national backbone. The descriptors are powerful, stable, structured, and scalable. So for a parent who might be moving abroad, why is CBSE still the anchor of this whole discussion?
Because CBSE is the known quantity. It's the reliable default. It gives you this indispensable cultural and educational anchor, especially for families who think they might one day return to India.
Or for kids who need to sit for those big competitive exams.
Exactly. The JEE for engineering, NEED for medicine, those are built around the CBSE framework. Its structure is predictable, the content is standardized, and within India, it's universally accepted.
But, and this is the big but, internationally it's always had this reputation for, rote memorization over critical thinking. That's a huge point of friction with Western universities.
It is. And that's where the strategies analysis has to get really sharp, focusing on what they call the modernization point. The blueprint is clear that CBSE is trying to upgrade, specifically with this move towards competency-based learning.
And for a mobile parent, that's everything.
That's the single most important thing to watch. This is CBSE's direct answer to that rote learning criticism. It's a shift from what do you know to what can you do with what you know.
So the deep dives need to analyze if this is actually working. Is it a real change or is it just rebranding?
That's the question. Are schools doing real project-based assessments? Or are they just calling their old exams competency-based? The strategic insight here is huge. If this shift is successful, a CBSE student's portfolio suddenly looks a lot more like an IB student's. It becomes much more transferable.
And if it's not successful?
Then that global mobility gap stays exactly where it is. Parents need to know how to look at their kids' school and tell the difference between real implementation and just marketing talk.
That's a much deeper level of analysis. Okay, let's shift to System 2. IB, the global passport. The language here is equally ambitious. Inquiry-based, international, mobility-friendly. They say it's loved by universities worldwide.
And for the most part, that's true. The IB diploma is a brand name. Top universities in the US, the UK, Canada, Australia, they all know it. They trust it. They value the critical thinking, the research skills from the extended essay, the whole holistic approach.
So graduates aren't just showing they know facts, they're showing they can manage complex, long-term projects.
Which is the #1 predictor of success in university.
But the strategy is also very clear about the cautions. It's expensive, it's demanding, and it's often misunderstood. So let's talk about the real cost. Is it the tuition fee or is it something else?
The tuition is the obvious barrier, of course. It can be 5, even 10 times the cost of a good state board school. But the hidden cost is the pressure culture.
Explain that.
IB is not about cramming for a final exam. It's a marathon of continuous assessment. Students are constantly juggling major projects, internal assessments, presentations, the extended essay, and all of it counts towards their final grade. There's no off switch.
So for a child coming from a CBSE background, where you have these intense but predictable exam cycles.
It can be psychologically crushing. The self-management, the constant low-level anxiety, the need for perfectionism across the board. It's a very different kind of stress. So the strategy has to analyze the real return on investment.
And the answer isn't always yes.
Not at all. Is the massive financial and emotional investment worth it? Yes, if your #1 goal is getting into a top 20 university in the US, the IB portfolio gives you a huge advantage there. But what if your child wants to go to a top engineering school in India?
Then the IB curriculum doesn't prepare them for the entrance test.
Right. So you end up paying for the expensive IB school and for expensive external coaching just to pass the JEE. For that family, IB might actually be a bad investment that creates more friction, not less.
So this is about moving past the marketing and into the hard numbers and the psychological reality. Okay, what about the third system, state boards? The local ecosystem. The source acknowledges they're affordable and rooted in local culture.
Which are huge benefits. Let's not downplay that.
But for our audience, for the globally mobile parent, the assessment is, well, it's pretty brutal. The quote is, they are good, but only if you're not planning to move.
Ouch.
It's direct. So let me play devil's advocate here. Isn't that a bit dismissive? For many families, affordability isn't a bonus feature, it's the deciding factor. A state board might be the only option for the first few years.
That's a completely fair challenge. And I think the deep dive has to be careful here. It's not dismissing affordability. It's framing it as a strategic constraint related to mobility. Meaning, if your strategic plan is, we are not moving for the next 10 years, then a state board can be a fantastic choice. You get affordability, you get cultural grounding, but the second that plan changes, the second you get that unexpected job transfer,
it becomes a huge problem.
a huge point of friction. Because there are over 30 different boards, the transcripts aren't standardized. They're hard to interpret, even for schools in other Indian states, let alone a school in, Germany. The curriculum is often so focused on local context that the student falls behind on national or international benchmarks in subjects like math or science.
So the assessment is accurate, but it's specifically for the mobile family.
Exactly. For them, a state board is either a temporary bridge, knowing you'll have to switch later, or it's a dead end in terms of portability. It's rarely a flexible, long-term choice.
And this brings us back to the structure of the show itself, dedicating so much time, 30 minutes each, to CBSE and IB, and then fitting the state boards in between.
That time allocation tells you everything you need to know about the target audience. CBSE gets a deep dive because it's the national baseline, the reality against which everything else is measured. IB gets equal time because it represents the highest complexity, the highest cost, and the highest potential reward.
So it needs the most scrutiny.
The most analysis to justify the investment. And the state boards are fitted in because for the mobile parent, their strategic importance is lower due to that lack of portability. The structure of the analysis perfectly mirrors the strategic priorities of the family they're talking to.
Okay, so we have the problem, the tone, the framework. Now let's look at who this is actually for. The blueprint gives a really detailed target audience profile, and I think it's going to sound very familiar to a lot of people listening.
It's designed to speak directly to the uncertainty that defines this lifestyle. It's for that parent who's thinking, okay, maybe we'll move abroad in 2 years. They need to start preparing now.
It's also for the parents who are laser-focused on the end goal. Their kids want to apply to foreign universities, so they need to backward engineer the whole academic path to get there.
And then there's maybe the most stressed out group of all. The parent who works for a multinational company and could be relocated at any moment. For them, uncertainty is the only certainty.
And the one thing that connects all of them is this dual ambition, this desire for a child who is, as the source puts it, Indian, but also global.
It's a search for that perfect balance, preserving identity while enabling professional and academic mobility. And the core motivation driving all of it is just pure risk mitigation.
It boils down to that one sentence: I don't want my child to suffer because of my decisions.
Exactly. This entire 100-episode series is, at its heart, a massive risk management tool. It's designed to take all that free-floating parental anxiety and channel it into actionable knowledge, which leads us straight into the promised learning outcomes, what they call the 7 pillars of knowledge.
Right, and this is the real meat of the strategy. So let's take some time and do a deep dive on each of these 7 pillars. Pillar 1 is transferability. This is the hard, bureaucratic reality of moving.
This is where the dream meets the paperwork. It's about the mechanics. When an admissions officer in Canada gets a CBSE transcript, do they really understand what a 95% means in the Indian context?
Usually not.
Usually not. They default to systems they know, like the IB's 7-point scale. So the deep dive has to provide a conversion analysis. Does that 95% in CBSE science really equal a top score in IB science? Often, it doesn't, because the international system puts a huge weight on documented practical lab work, something CBSE hasn't always emphasized for external review.
So it's about giving parents a checklist of the extra documentation they need?
Exactly. Beyond just the report card, you need standardized portfolio, maybe external exam scores like the TOEFL, and recommendation letters that are written for an international audience. If you fail on transferability, your kid could lose credits or end up in remedial classes. It's a terrible start to a new life.
Okay, pillar 2, curriculum mapping. This sounds much more tactical, looking at specific topics a child might miss or repeat when they switch systems.
This is all about academic efficiency. Think about moving from a state board that focuses heavily on regional history to the IB, which requires a global history perspective. Your child has huge conceptual gaps.
And the reverse can also be a problem.
A huge problem. A child moving from CBSE to the IGCSE system in middle school might find themselves repeating basic math for 6 months. That leads to boredom, complacency, and they lose their academic edge.
So the strategic analysis has to provide a real map.
A detailed cross-map. Like, you're moving at the end of grade 7 from CBSE to IB middle years. Here are the 3 mandatory catch-up topics in science and the 2 you need in social studies to make that jump without any friction. That kind of specific practical advice turns a huge worry into a manageable summer project.
Right. Pillar 3 is costs and scholarships. And the promise here is to analyze what's actually worth paying for versus what's just expensive hype.
This is about being a smart consumer in a market that's designed to make you emotional. Parents are constantly pressured into spending a fortune on things that have a very low strategic return.
Like what?
Like, expensive tutoring for a non-core subject. Or choosing a school just because it has a fancy campus and a big brand name, assuming that equals better university placement.
Which doesn't always.
Not always. The strategic insight has to be data-driven. The data shows, for example, that investing in high-quality certified college counseling in the IB years has a much higher ROI for getting scholarships than, say, paying for extra French lessons. It's about spending your money on the things that actually move the needle on a university application.
Pillar 4 gets to the end goal, global university pathways, analyzing the different routes for different kinds of students.
This is where the rubber meets the road. First, you have the CBSE student trying to go abroad. How do they build the kind of holistic portfolio U.S. University wants to see? They need a plan for research, community service, leadership, things that aren't graded on their report card.
Then you have the opposite, the IB student who wants to study in India.
And they're often totally unprepared for the entrance tests. The IB teaches you how to think and analyze, not how to do rapid-fire multiple-choice questions under extreme time pressure. The strategy needs to show them how to bridge that gap, which usually means very specific external coaching.
And finally, the state board student. The source says it will analyze how they get stuck.
It's a tough but necessary conversation. It's usually a combination of things: transcripts that aren't recognized, potential language barriers, and just a total lack of familiarity with the international application process itself. It severely limits their options.
Pillar 5 moves into the human cost, emotional transitions. This focuses on things like identity loss, language shock, social resets.
Yeah, this is so critical. When a child moves countries, they lose their entire social world. They can suffer from what's called identity loss. They feel too Indian for their new home. But when they visit India, they feel too foreign. It's the classic third culture kid problem.
And language shock is more than just struggling in class.
It's about losing the ability to tell a joke, to get the subtle social cues, to just belong. It leads to incredible isolation. So the strategy here isn't to prevent the challenges, but to build resilience, giving parents concrete coping strategies.
Pillar 6, mental health and peer pressure, takes that a step further. It looks at how competition and stress are handled in these different systems.
And the stress profiles are completely different. The CBSE system often creates this intense, cyclical stress around high-stakes exams. It's brutal, but it comes in waves.
And the IB.
The IB is more like a constant low-grade fever of anxiety. The pressure is always on, it rewards perfectionism, and can lead to chronic burnout. The roadmap has to help parents figure out which stress profile actually matches their child's personality. A kid who thrives on deadlines might do better in CBSE, even if the long-term goal is international.
It's about matching the culture to the child. Finally, Pillar 7, AI, hybrid schooling, and the future. This is the forward-looking part.
It has to be. You can't have a strategic compass that's only pointing to the past. AI is already changing everything. It can do the rote memorization, the basic research. So schools have to pivot to teaching and assessing the things AI can't do: critical thinking, creativity, complex problem solving.
So parents need to know how to judge if a school is ready for that future.
Exactly. Is the school embracing these tools, or are they trying to ban them? And with hybrid schooling becoming more common, parents have to become like managers of their child's digital life in a totally new way. This pillar is about making sure the education you pay for today isn't obsolete tomorrow.
And the most practical part of this whole thing, every single one of these 100 episodes is promised to end with a 6-point action checklist.
That's the key. It makes it real. It's not just interesting theory. It translates directly into, okay, here are the 6 things I need to do this week. It forces accountability and gives parents a sense of control in a process that feels completely uncontrollable.
So let's talk about the tone again, the communication standards that are supposed to define this whole strategy. The blueprint is very clear about what this series is not.
Right. No motivational speeches.
Yeah.
No fear-mongering. Just clarity.
Pure, analytical, clean.
And that restraint is how you build trust. When you're making a decision this big, you don't need a cheerleader. You need an analyst. The promise is to break it down into what works, what fails, what is hype, and what really matters.
It's basically giving parents a filter.
A filter to process all the marketing nonsense they're bombarded with. It helps them separate real educational value from a glossy brochure.
And the commitment to being unbiased is central. No sugarcoating, no jargon, and absolutely no favoritism towards any particular board.
That's the hardest part, but it's the most important. For this strategic compass to work, it has to be objective. It has to be just as honest about the friction points in CBSE as it is about the huge cost of iDive. It's a comparative risk assessment, plain and simple.
To really get a feel for the depth here, the source teases some of the future topics, and they go way beyond just comparing two boards. They get into really granular tactical stuff.
And these topics show you they understand the real-life complexity of it. For instance, language strategy, English, mother tongue, and host country languages.
That's a huge one.
It's a juggling act. A globally mobile child needs academic English for university, their mother tongue to maintain their cultural identity, and the host country's language just to make friends and integrate socially. That's not an accident. That requires a multi-year strategic plan from the parents.
Then there's the one that hits right at the core of parental fear. Board switching without losing a year.
That's pure practical problem solving. It means they're going to get into the weeds on things like bridge programs, summer coursework, specific external exams you can take to make sure academic credits actually transfer when you move. It's about managing that academic handover so your child doesn't fall behind.
And connecting back to mental health, a topic called mental health. When moving creates anxiety.
So dedicated episodes just on that, on how to spot the signs of distress that are unique to these kids, who are often experts at hiding how they feel, and then giving parents actual tangible coping strategies to help manage that instability.
The roadmap also looks ahead with a topic like how CBSE and IB react to AI, metaverse, and digital classrooms.
This keeps the whole series relevant. It's analyzing whether these huge educational systems are actually adapting to technology. Are they teaching kids how to use AI as a tool, or are they fighting a losing battle to ban it from the classroom? The answer tells you if a board is future-ready or not.
And then the one that measures the final result. University admissions, what foreign colleges really prefer.
Yes. Moving past the marketing to the hard truth. Does an engineering program in Germany really care about the IB's holistic portfolio? Or do they just want to see a top score in CBSE physics and math? The answer changes depending on the country and the subject, and parents need that specific intel.
And lastly, building a portable student portfolio that works everywhere.
That's the ultimate toolkit, a practical guide to creating a single document of your child's achievements, projects, and test scores that any admissions officer in the world can understand instantly. It's the operational fix for that transferability problem we talked about earlier.
So when you look at all of this, 100 topics over 100 weeks, it really suggests something has fundamentally changed.
It suggests that choosing a school isn't a one-time decision you make in 5th grade anymore. It's a continuous process. In a world where families move, technology changes, and curricula evolve every year, this series is trying to build a habit in parents. A habit of constant learning and strategic recalibration over the long term. #tag outro.
So after all that, what does this all mean? The strategic roadmap we've just broken down, it's really sending one single overarching message. Parenting isn't a local activity anymore.
For this group.
Not at all. The world your child is growing up in, the opportunities, the competition, the way they learn, it's all global, it's hyper-competitive, and it's changing all the time.
You can't navigate that with old maps.
You can't. This kind of deep analytical strategy is necessary now, because if you don't truly understand the educational world, its systems, its biases, its trends, you just can't guide your child through it effectively. You end up making choices based on fear, or worse, on a school's marketing budget.
And the need for this kind of roadmap, it really reflects the new reality for the professional Indian diaspora. They are juggling this incredible balancing act, trying to maintain their cultural roots while also setting their children up for global academic and professional success.
It's a huge pressure.
It is, and it's an acknowledgement that the old way of just picking the good school down the road is completely insufficient for this kind of high-mobility life.
Yep.
The parent has to evolve. You're no longer just a parent. You're the chief strategist for your child's entire academic career.
So the final takeaway for you listening to this is that this blueprint is about empowerment. It's not just about choosing a school. It's about giving you the tools to actively build a child who is globally, mobile, confident, and clear about their path. It's about making their world, as the source says, bigger, brighter, and safer.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to consider. The roadmap positions this 100-episode series as a strategic compass. But that raises a really important question. In a world where education is changing so fast, where AI is rewriting the rules, new competency models are being rolled out, and even immigration policies are shifting constantly, how long can any single roadmap, even a 2-year one, stay completely accurate? And if that's the case, What is the strategic habit a parent needs to adopt beyond just listening to a series like this to keep their own personal compass constantly recalibrated? How do you ensure your child is always positioned for success in a world that might be completely different by the time they graduate? That continuous vigilance, that constant recalibration, that's probably the true hallmark of the modern, globally mobile parent.